everybody, this is Eternal Blade here and welcome back to another tutorial. Today we'll be covering how to create some intricate scroll work for your architectural scenes. So this is kind of what we're going to have in the end. We're actually just going to do the scroll work modeling. I won't do the lighting or anything. It's just a simple setup. But you'll learn how to do the entirety of creating the scroll work, figuring out how to adjust it. I'll give you two different styles, so you can either have the sort of square or the rounded style. So it'll be a pretty cool tutorial. It's going to be about 20 minutes long, so quite a short one. But hopefully you'll learn something and be able to use it in your own projects. So let's begin. Alright, so to begin we're going to need a reference image. Now I've already downloaded one here, but you can get any scroll work reference image that you want. It's all going to be the same exact technique. So because I'm using this one, let's go ahead and just start with it. So I'm going to go ahead and make a plane in my front viewport here, just like so, and give it a length of 1 and 1. Alright, and then I'm going to check the size of my image. So let's just first go to materials here by pressing M on the keyboard. You can assign a VRA material or a standard. And the diffuse map, standard bitmap, let's go ahead and assign the scroll work texture that we've downloaded. Go ahead and click the show shaded material in viewport option and just drag it onto the plane. Now you're going to see it's a bit skewed, so what we need to do is find the length and width of our picture. So mine happens to be 211 pixels tall by 300 pixels tall by 211 pixels wide. Okay. You can go ahead and close this. So now we've got our image basically. So press F3 on the keyboard in the front viewport. Press Alt W to maximize it and G to get rid of the grid. Let's go over here to shapes and to line. Now this is actually where the sort of the work comes in. So we're just gonna go ahead and start just basically following the lines here. Now it doesn't have to be perfect. We're gonna do some cleaning up a little bit later. Just try to get it about as good as you can. And this image is a bit off center, so it's not going to help as much. And if you ever have a break like this, just go ahead and create your new geometry. Alright, so here we go. Like I say, you don't have to make it perfect just yet. Just try to get some general shapes going in. I think I probably have too many vertices here, but oh well. And we got one more up here. Alright, so we've got that geometry laid in, and let's go ahead and start cleaning it up. So watch out there. So grab your spline here and go ahead and drag out and convert it to an editable spline. If you go into your vertex subobject mode, you'll see you have handles. We can use these to sort of adjust the look of our scene, and we should all have them on Bezier. So if you don't have these, just right click and go to Bezier. Alright, let's just move these around, and if you can't move them in all the different directions, that's because you have to actually have Y and X both selected. So move your vertex a little bit and then you'll get the handles. I don't know why it does that, but that's the way it is. Right, so you're just trying to get about as smooth a transition as you can have. And you don't have to follow the picture exactly. You can deviate a little bit. So let's just come in here and try to clean all these up. So it does take a little bit of time here, but there's really no trick to it, which kind of makes it easier, honestly. Alright. Just thinking what I should orient these to. I'm trying to go for the outside edge here as opposed to anything else. At least that way I can have a standard sort of position. Excellent. That one already seems pretty good. And you can really use this technique for any type of scroll work, whether you want to do a decorative window. You could do some sort of stained glass by layering these things together. So it's a very versatile way of creating this sort of thing. Alright, bring that over there. And this doesn't have a handle, so go ahead and make it a Bezier, and then you can sort of drag it in. So there we go. We've got one of our things basically done. Just trying to make sure all these are accurate. Alright, now let's go ahead and move on to this guy here. So you can click, and you don't even need to make it a Bezier or a editable spline just yet, but we're gonna attach it anyway later on. So this guy's got a little more work to be done, but not much. Alright. And if you want to spend a little more time when you're actually making the curves, it'll make your life a little bit easier, but I mean, you're going to be here adjusting anyway, so it's not too big of a deal. And for this, just make sure it's pretty closely aligned. It doesn't have to be perfect because we are going to be changing it once we create the geometry, so don't struggle too hard if you can't get it perfect. Alright. Something like that. I'm just trying to get nice, even flowing curves that don't really change the nature of the shape too much. Alright. Looking pretty good so far. And really, I mean, after this, it's going to be a race to the finish line. So we did that. So all we've got left is this one, I believe. So let's go ahead and adjust this one to fit. Okay, just make it a Bezier. Kind of drag it out like that. Okay. That looks pretty good. That looks good. So maybe it can come down a little bit. Alright, we'll adjust that one over there. Make sort of big sweeping curves. Honestly, the fewer vertices you have in this, the easier it's going to be. Just because you have less handles and such to work with. But you can't get as much detail if you have fewer handles. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Do you want to be able to adjust every single point, or do you want to be able to just easily adjust your shape? So you got to kind of watch out for that, but it just takes some trial and error figuring out how many vertices do you want to have, and how much do you want to be able to affect your overall shape. Alright, so there we go. So we've got sort of all of our lines nice and happy. Now let's go ahead and grab our editable spline here, hit attach, and let's go ahead and attach the 4 other objects that we created. Now in your vertex mode, what you're going to want to do is try to find these guys and just make sure that all the ends match up. If you have something like this, go ahead and just fuse them. It doesn't actually connect them, but it really does help in the final stages. We're actually going to go ahead and fuse these as well, and maybe move it up a little bit. Alright, so let me go ahead and just hide this for a second. So now we've got our basic shape here. So what we need to do now is go ahead and add an extrude modifier. So just click in the modifier thing, extrude, and then I'm actually going to duplicate this right now just so I can show you 2 different methods of doing it. So the first one, we're going to use the extrude, and you can extrude whatever you want. I mean, depending on the size of your scene. 5 centimeters here looks a little short, so we're going to go with 7. Then go to a shell modifier, right, and this will be basically the thickness of your iron. So we're going to go about 0.75 centimeters, maybe a bit thinner here. And you're going to see here, these things, you sort of want to connect. So maybe a bit more, maybe 0.9. So that's really close to connecting. Now press F4 to turn on your lines. Go ahead and add a chamfer modifier. Now you're going to see everything is chamfered. Well, we don't quite want that. But let's go ahead and bring this down to something like 0.2 first. And to adjust that, you'll see some of these are chamfered and some of these aren't. And this is based off the minimum angle. So basically the only angle we want chamfered is 90. So let's go ahead and bring this to something like 85 degrees. And you're going to see now only the edges are chamfered. Everything else isn't. So that's exactly what we want. So now we can go ahead and let's actually apply an edit poly modifier here and drag it below the chamfer. Then go ahead and apply your turbo smooth. And you can just check isoline display. And so now, depending on your chamfer size, will affect your edge. So if we go ahead and make this chamfer 0.1, we're going to get a little bit harder edges. And that's basically, how you do that. And one of the other things we need to watch out for is we're going to actually have some interactions here. You see it where it kind of comes in. So to fix that, press 1 on the keyboard here. Let's go ahead and turn this off, and F3. And you can actually just grab that interior polygon right here, press R, and we're just going to scale it in a little bit and then scale it down. That'll just help ease the transition between them. And you're going to want to do that at all of the interfaces. So we actually have one over here as well. Okay, and that's just so you don't get some weird stretched lines and such. And you can actually even do it on the polygon below as well if you think it's going to be a problem. Alright, perfect. And right here, you don't have to worry so much, but what I would do is probably, let's see, grab your two loops here and just shrink them in ever so slightly. Alright, there we go. Now we've got basically our design there. Let's go ahead and show you just another method of doing this real quick. So we have our extrude here. Let's go ahead and make the extrude something like 3. And then if you add your shell and make it the same number, or basically make the inner and outer the same, so we'll just do 1.5 and 1.5, we're going to have a perfect square on the ends. And if you don't use a chamfer and you use a turbo smooth instead, this will give you that nice sort of rounded result. You might need 2 iterations, but that will give you the rounded result. And you need to do the same steps to where you sort of work on the ends a little bit. So let's go ahead and add an edit poly modifier, sort of right before the turbo smooth. And you want to uncheck the show end result. Alright, now just press R. You can actually just grow this selection and just shrink it down a little bit. And I believe there was one more interface down here. So just grab the end, grow it, and just shrink it down just a little bit. Alright, and there we go. Now you'll have that nice rounded look. So it's more of a stylistic choice here. Now go ahead and unhide all, because we're not quite done yet. We still need to add these little, well, whatever these pieces are called, I'm not quite sure. And you can do these in a variety of ways. I think I'm just going to do some basic polygon modeling for those. So we're just going to drag out something like that. And let's go ahead and convert it to an editable poly. I use a hotkey, Control-Alt-Q. Grab the top. Actually, drag it in a little bit, grab the top and the bottom, and just use some sort of creative beveling to get the shape that we're looking for. Something like that. And perhaps in the middle here, we're going to grab these and just give them a connect. Press R and scale them out a little bit. Okay. On the front viewport, let's go ahead and just line this up. So E, we're going to rotate that, press R, and just sort of scale it up here. Now we're going to need to adjust this, but let's see how much we need to adjust it. Quite a bit, apparently. So press 1 on the keyboard, and we're just going to drag these in. Just didn't get them all, apparently. Not sure what happened there. We got the wrong line there, so just go ahead and ring, connect, and now we can scale that up a little bit. Okay, so back into your front viewport and reposition it. Okay, do your rotating and just try to get it where you think it needs to be. Scale it up a little bit, perspective. Now let's go ahead and just, you can go in the top viewport for this, press W and just scale them in so you have about equal geometry on both sides. Alright, there we go, and I'm going to say I want mine to be a little skinnier, so go to the, press R and go to local, and we can just scale it down this way a little bit. Excellent. And we can immediately apply a turbo smooth modifier to this. We're going to need to add some additional geometry here though. Let's just grab that and that, as well as these guys. Go ahead and loop and chamfer, and you're going to give the chamfer about 0.2. Alright. And just that way, when you turbo smooth it, you'll get a little more defined edges. And then what you need to do is grab these guys, loop, ring, chamfer. Okay, and this will give you the square shape that we're looking for. So there we go. Now you've got a little bit of a thing. I think we actually went the wrong way. This needs to be rotated 180 degrees, I believe. Yes, it does. So we're just going to do some adjusting here. And let's see what we want to do. Just bring it out. And bring it out. And then let's go ahead and scale it. We're still in the local, so we can just shrink it down. And that's more of what I'm actually looking for. Alright, there we go. And maybe even shrink it a bit more. Okay, let's go ahead and just copy this guy to wherever else we need him. So we need one over here. Alright, just rotate it into position. Alright, and then we need one down here. You can always go back, and the beauty of this is adjust your geometry if you don't like it. So, pretty nifty little thing to be able to do. Alright, so that will work. Let's go ahead and just add a quick box here. Something like that ought to do. And then just convert it to an editable poly. Grab the edge here. And actually, let's just go ahead and delete our reference image. We don't really need it anymore. Now that we're coming in the final stages here. So let's just bring this down. And one of the things we need to watch out for is this should be fairly flat. So you can always go to your edit spline here. Actually, so your edit poly. You probably could change your edit spline if we wanted. Let's actually save this first. Saving is always good. I always have a problem before I forget to save, so Scrollwork. Let's see what happens if we do change the edit spline. Yes, and hold, and try to bring it up just a little bit. And This may work, it may not work. Alright, and then go back. And there we go. Now our geometry is a little closer to what it should be. And maybe even bring it down a bit more. Alright, unless, let's see, we don't really need that kind of, I don't think. So back in the front viewport here, let's probably just leave that as is. Maybe drag it out a bit. And the reason I'm doing this is so when I rotate this down, it'll all match up. Alright, that's fine. Just press 1 on the keyboard and drag it down. You can see we're a little bit off. So we probably should have done a few adjustments. But we're pretty close, actually. So, yes and hold. Let's just grab this guy and drag him out. Drag them all out a little bit. Something like that ought to do. Alright, there we go. And well, looks like that needs a bit more of a curve. Alright, perfect. And so, there we basically have it. You can edit the polygons if you want them to be a little better, but that's sort of the general gist of how to make scroll work, and you can just copy all these design elements over to the rounded one as well, for whatever you like. So you can use these pretty much anywhere, in designs, or if you want to have like a fireplace mantle or a cool window. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and leave me comments of what else you'd like to see. So with that being said, I will see you next time, and as always, happy modeling.